All right, thank you guys. Happy Monday morning to you. And welcome to our NBA free pick video here today for January 10th, 2022. My name is Brock Page and I do sports picks for free right here on YouTube. And if you want to see all of my personal bets for today, there's only one way to do that, and that's to sign up for my board member package on brockpage.com. And once again, board members on my website get access to every single bet that I'm making all the way through the end of January. And actually, if you were to sign up for my board member package here today, the math would actually work out to be just $2.27 a day all the way through the end of the month. And at an average of 5 premium sports picks per day, it would actually work out to be just around 45 cents a pick. And of course, if you're getting ready for the big national championship here tonight in college football, we also have a college football tier membership on that website, where we are currently 6-1 in our last 7 picks in that very category. So if you want to see who I'm betting on in tonight's college football national championship, there's only one way to do that, and that's to either sign up for my board member tier, or you can sign up for my college football tier membership. And the link for both of those packages are in the description section below. And with that, guys, let's go ahead and dive into some free picks. Enough of the commercial. We're going to start with the Bucks taking on the Hornets, 7 o'clock Eastern start time. Now, Milwaukee is minus 2.5 on the road with a total at 234. Now, the Bucks have won 7 out of their last 10 ball games, and they currently find themselves 10 games above 500 in the win-loss column. Certainly doing a good job, getting the W here over the past 3 or 4 weeks or so. Having said that, though, more recently the Bucks did lose 3 out of their last 4 ball games, and they successfully covered the point spread just once during that stretch. Now, the Bucks are also having a tough time defensively in the second half. As a matter of fact, these guys allow more third-quarter points on the road than any other team in the NBA. So if you're into prop betting, maybe you want to fade Milwaukee in that third quarter, or maybe make a small play on the third quarter total. But think about that. It's not all great for Milwaukee backers. And I'll tell you what, if that wasn't bad enough, these guys actually have a handful of players on the injury report here today. Allen, Holiday, and Hill, they are all listed as out for tonight's contest. Meanwhile, Brook Lopez is still out indefinitely, and Dante DiVincenzo, he is listed as questionable. Now, Milwaukee is taking on a Charlotte team who's mostly healthy themselves. It's just Carey who's sitting this one out here tonight. Now, the Hornets have gotten the W in 5 out of their last 7 ball games, and they covered the number in a bunch of home games this season as well. The Hornets are currently 13-3 against the spread at the Spectrum Center, and that's good for over 81% in that particular category. So these guys doing a great job against the number in front of their home fans. Miles Bridges is averaging nearly 20 points a game, along with 7 boards and 3 assists. Meanwhile, LaMelo Ball is scoring over 19 points a night himself, along with 7 rebounds and 7 assists as well. Certainly good production out of both of those guys. Charlotte's currently leading the entire NBA in home scoring per contest, having no problems, getting to the net. And they're also drilling nearly 41% of their three-pointers in front of their home crowd as well. They're actually leading the association in that particular category. When it comes to the total in this one, the Hornets saw 2 out of their last 3 get over the posted number, 63% to the over in all of their contests in Charlotte. Meanwhile, the Bucks went 60% to the over in their last 10 outings themselves, and those were overs against the likes of Toronto, New Orleans, and Orlando during that stretch. I'm going to go ahead and lean toward Charlotte plus 2.5 and the over 234. Next ball game, it is going to be Jazz versus the Pistons, and that's going to be a 7 o'clock Eastern tip-off. Utah is the 12-point favorite with the total at 224, and despite their recent skid, the Jazz still got the W in 7 out of their last 10 outings, and they're also winning 74% of their ball games on the road. These guys have been very good when traveling this year. The Jazz actually score more points per contest than any other team in the association. And they also lead the NBA in offensive field goal percentage. Certainly no problems getting to the basket here for Utah. Now, Donovan Mitchell is scoring over 25.5 points a night, along with 3 boards and 5 assists. Meanwhile, Bojan Bogdanovic is drilling 42% of his three-pointers, along with 18 points a game as well. And when it comes to rebounding in this one, the Jazz currently lead the league in defensive boards on the road. They're taking on a Pistons team here today who's in the bottom 5 in offensive rebounding themselves, and they're winning just 27% of their home games. Now, the Pistons are averaging only 100 points a night, and they're making only 30% of their three-pointers at the Little Caesars Arena. Certainly bad things going on for Detroit in front of their home fans. Now, when it comes to the injury report, Grant and Livers are still out indefinitely. Meanwhile, for Utah on the other side of things, Gobert, Ingles, and Fitz, they're sitting this one out here tonight for the Jazz. And when it comes to the total in this one, Utah saw unders recently against the likes of Denver, New Orleans, and Portland. They're also 12-7 of the under when they travel this year. Meanwhile, Detroit on the other side of things, they saw 4 out of their last 6 fall under the line themselves. And when it comes to head-to-head meetings, Detroit went 70% to the under in their last 10 meetings with Utah. I'm going to go ahead and lean toward the Jazz minus 12 and the under 224. Next ball game, it is going to be Spurs versus the Knicks, 7:30 Eastern start time. Now, New York's minus 6.5 with the total at 212. And New York, they are currently in the top 5 in defensive field goal percentage. And they're also limiting their competition to just 105 points a game. These guys have been really playing some good defense this year. Having said that, though, more recently, these guys lost 3 out of their last 5 ball games, and they averaged only 86 points a game offensively in those losses. And if that ain't bad enough, the Knicks currently have a losing record at Madison Square Garden, and they currently find themselves covering in only 40% of their ball games in front of their home fans at MSG. Now, the Knicks are currently averaging only 104 points a game offensively, and they also find themselves in the bottom 5 in the NBA in shooting from the field at home. Now, they're taking on a Spurs team who covered the number in 2 out of their last 3 themselves. And they also went 60% against the spread in their last 10. So these guys doing a pretty good job, cashing in tickets here recently. Now, DeJounte Murray, he's scoring over 18 points a game, along with 9 boards and 9 assists. Meanwhile, Jacob Poeltl is averaging over 12 points a game himself, along with 8 rebounds and a couple assists as well. I think maybe it's Jacob, but I just say Jacob. They would give him the good old-fashioned Jake. But anyway, not only do the Spurs rank at the top 10 in the league in scoring, they're also amongst the best offensive rebounding teams in the Western Conference, doing very good under the boards. Now, injury-wise, Young, McDermott, White, Johnson, Jones, and Vassell, they're all infected. Meanwhile, for New York, Walker, Fournier, and Noel, they are questionable with injuries themselves. Ryan Arcidiacono, he is out with an ankle. And when it comes to the number in this one, New York saw games recently with Boston, Toronto, and Washington get over the posted number. They also went 60% to the over in their last 10 meetings with San Antonio. Meanwhile, the Spurs, on the other side of things, they saw 5 out of their last 9 get over the line themselves. I'm going to go ahead and lean towards San Antonio plus 6.5 in the over 212. Next ball game, it is going to be Pacers versus the Celtics, 7:30 Eastern tip-off. Boston is minus 7 with the total at 215.5. Now, Boston is winning 60% of their home games this season, and they've been one of the better defensive teams in the association this year. They're giving up only 104 points a night at the Garden, and they're also currently in the top 5 in the league in defensive field goal percentage. Now, when it comes to the scoring in this one, Jason Tatum is averaging 25.5 points a game, along with 8 rebounds and 3 assists. Meanwhile, Jaylen Brown is scoring over 24 points a game himself, along with 6 boards and a couple assists. Now they're taking on a Pacer team who went just 1-6 straight up in their last 7 ball games, and they're one of the worst road teams in the entire NBA. Indiana's currently just 3-15 straight up when traveling this year, and that's good for only 16% in that particular category. These guys have been awful away from the Gainbridge Fieldhouse. Now the Pacers are also scoring only 103 points a night on the road, and they're making just 31% of their three-pointers in that same category. Once again, when these guys travel, bad things happen. I gotta imagine those plane rides and those bus trips are awful miserable. But anyway, injury-wise, Anderson, LeVert, and Batazzi, they are in quarantine. Jackson, Craig, and Brogdon are questionable. Meanwhile, for Boston, on the other side of things, Pritchard is out. Thomas is questionable. When it comes to the total in this one, the Celtics went 60% to the under in their last 10 outings, 23-17 to the under for the entire season. Meanwhile, the Pacers saw games recently with New York, Chicago, and Charlotte fall under the posted number themselves. I'm going to lean toward Boston -7 and the under 215.5. Next matchup, it is going to be Sixers versus the Rockets, 8 o'clock East. Philadelphia is -10.5 with the total at 226. And despite a really nice stretch of games here recently for Philadelphia, they're still struggling with offensive rebounds. As a matter of fact, the Sixers are currently dead last in the entire association in offensive rebounds per game. These guys certainly struggling in the painted area. Meanwhile, on the other end of the court, the Sixers are also in the bottom 10 in defensive boards as well. Now, Milton, Maxey, Reed, and Springer, they're all sitting this one out here tonight for Philly. Won't see those guys in action. Now, the Sixers are taking on a Houston team who actually does a real nice job scoring late in games. The Rockets are currently in the top 10 in fourth quarter scoring, and they're currently led by Christian Wood, who's averaging over 17 points a game, along with double-digit rebounds. So with that, factor in mind, there's always the possibility of a backdoor cover, especially when a team like Houston is catching nearly 11 points. Even if they start to get blown out, they're always in it with regard to a backdoor cover. Now, Eric Gordon, he's drilling 44% of his three balls for Houston, and he's averaging over 14 points a night as well. And when it comes to the injury report for Houston, Brooks and Garuba are still in quarantine for the Rockets. And when it comes to the total in this one, Houston went 80% to the over in their last 10 outings, 63% to the over at the Toyota Center. Meanwhile, for Philadelphia, they went 4-2 to the over in their last 6 themselves. I'm going to lean toward Houston plus 10.5 and the over 226. Next ball game, it is going to be Cavs, Kings, 10 o'clock Eastern start time. Cleveland is -5.5 with the total at 220. Now, the Cavaliers lost 5 out of their last 7 ball games, and they successfully covered the point spread only once during that stretch. Having said that, though, the Cavs are still covering the number in 70% of their road games this year, and they allow fewer points per contest on the road than any other team in basketball. These guys have been very good defensively when traveling, and they've been very good covering the point spread away from their home court. Now, when it comes to the scoring in this one, Darius Garland is averaging nearly 20 points a game for Cleveland, along with 3 boards and 7 assists. Now, Garland's also been pretty good from beyond the arc. He's making almost 40% of his three-pointers. Meanwhile, teammate Jared Allen, he's grabbing double-digit rebounds a game, along with 16 points a night himself. And speaking of rebounds, the Cavaliers are in the top 10 in both offensive and defensive rebounding away from home. They're taking on a Sacramento team who lost their last 4 straight, and they also failed to cover in 7 out of their last 10. Now, the Kings are currently 10 games below 500 for the year, and they've struggled getting rebounds. Sacramento currently finds themselves in the bottom 5 in offensive rebounding at home, and they're also in the bottom 10 in defensive rebounding as well. Now, when it comes to the injury list, Harkless, Holmes, and Jones, they are listed as questionable to play tonight, so keep an eye on their status if you're looking to fire on this game. And when it comes to the scoring in this one, 4 out of Sacramento's last 7 fell under the posted total. 61% to the under this year at the Golden One Center as well. Meanwhile, the Cavaliers on the other side, they went 60% to the under in all of their road games this year themselves. I'm going to lean toward Cleveland -5.5 and the under 220. And with that, guys, we're going to jump into our next and final matchup of the show. It is going to be Nets versus the Blazers, and that's going to be a 10 o'clock Eastern tip-off. Brooklyn is -10.5 with the total at 229. Now, the Nets are tied for the most road wins in the entire NBA, as they're 14-3 straight up this year when traveling. Kevin Durant's averaging just about 30 points a game, along with 7 boards and 5 assists. Meanwhile, James Harden is scoring over 22 points a night himself, along with 8 rebounds and 9 assists as well. The Brooklyn Nets are currently leading the entire NBA in shooting from the field on the road. Meanwhile, defensively on the other end of the court, they're actually limiting their competition to just 30% shooting from beyond the arc when they travel. This is a well-rounded ball club, getting the job done on both ends of the court. Now, they're taking on a Blazers team who's still going to work without Lillard and McCollum. Really no timetable on either of those guys' return. The Blazers also dropped 6 out of their last 8 ball games, and they successfully covered the point spread just twice during that span. And aside from allowing 113 points a game defensively, this Blazer defense is dead last in guarding the 3-ball this year, and they're also letting their opponents make 48% of their field goals against them. So aside from injury problems, really, even when these guys are healthy, defense has been a big problem for this Portland organization. Now, injury-wise, Larry Nance is questionable to play here tonight for Portland. Meanwhile, for Brooklyn, LaMarcus Aldridge is questionable for them. When it comes to the total in this one, 5 out of Brooklyn's last 8 ball games got over the posted number. The Nets are also 10-7 to the over on the road this year. Meanwhile, Portland saw contests recently with Miami, Atlanta, and the Lakers get over the line themselves. I'm going to lean toward Brooklyn -10.5 and the over 229. And with that, guys, we're going to jump into our quick pick recap, powered to you by my website at brockpage.com, where we are currently 6-1 in our last 7 college football tier package picks. I like Charlotte +2.5 over 234. Utah -12 under 224. San Antonio +6.5 over 212. Boston -7 under 215.5. I also like Houston +10.5 over 226. Cleveland -5.5 under 220. And with my next and final free pick for the video, I'm going to lean toward Brooklyn -10.5 in the over 229. And with that, guys, that's going to do it for me. Don't forget to check me out on brockpage.com. If you guys do end up getting a membership here today on my website, just keep in mind you're going to get billed the day you sign up and then the first of every month following that if you continue to opt in. I always tell folks in every single video, the earlier in the month you sign up, the better. Once again, guys, if you want to get access to every single pick that I give out on that website, I strongly recommend it. And you may want to think about signing up for my board member tier, where once again, board members get access to every single pick that I give out on that website all the way through the end of January as well. But most importantly, guys, gotta thank you for joining me right here on YouTube. I really hope you enjoyed all this great free content, all this great free information. And with that said, guys, happy Monday to you. Best of luck to you. And I look forward to seeing you later on today on my website at brockpage.com.